What is up, you guys? Diggerdan here, coming at you with another video. Today I'm doing something a little different, something I haven't personally done before, and that's talking about 10 authors that I'm excited to try for the first time. So without further ado, let's dig into it. So before I get into my list of 10 authors, I just want to preface this with a couple of rules. The first rule is that it has to be an author that I haven't read any of their works before. So like Brandon Sanderson, for example, he's off the table because I have started reading his stuff. I read Elantris most recently, just as an example. Another just arbitrary rule I made is they have to have a book on my shelf somewhere just so I could actually have something to show you guys. And that way it would help limit me to only 10 authors instead of 50 or 100 that I could easily extend the list out to. So without further ado, let's dig into the first author. So in no particular order, the first author I'm excited to start reading is Joe Abercrombie. This is clearly the Blade itself. I do have the first trilogy, the first Law trilogy, and I know he has quite a few books out there between full-length novels and novellas, and I'm really excited to dig into these. I believe on my video I had at the beginning of this year, maybe end of last year, but 5 series I plan on starting. I think this is one of the honorable mentions, at least for Blade itself. So we'll see if I get to this by the end of the year. But yeah, anyway, I'm really excited to get into Joe Abercrombie because I heard he does phenomenal character work. I know he has like great theming. Again, this is things I've heard. Clearly, I haven't read a single page of his works yet. So I don't know how accurate this is or not, but just based off what I've heard, great theming, great character work. I've heard even like his bad guy characters that you get in the heads of that you really feel for. They feel like real humans, and then if something bad happens to them, you really feel it. I think I could be off base. Let me know in the comments. But yeah, I've heard phenomenal character work from Abercrombie, so I'm excited to dig into him. The next author I'm most excited to get into is John Gwynne, starting with Malice, or the Faithful and the Fallen series. This is another series that, from that same video I was referencing last book, is a series I plan on getting to this year. I think it's technically honorable mention as well. But yeah, John Gwynne, I've heard he similar to Abercrombie but different. He has great character work, but maybe not as psychological in your head stuff like Abercrombie. But I've heard a lot of people compare Gwynne to David Gemmell, where it's like almost popcorn fiction or popcorn fantasy, where very high action packed, get your blood pumping, action, things like that. Again, this is things I've heard, so I could be completely off base, and correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But that's just kind of the impression I have of him, and I'm really excited to dig into that kind of stuff, because, spoiler alert, Gemmell is one of my authors I'm also excited to dig into. But yeah, I know John Gwynne is currently writing another, like a new series. I don't know. He has, I think, 2 or 3 or 4 series that are completed right now. Or maybe 3 that are completed and one that's open-ended, or he's currently writing. I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments. But I have my hands full with a lot of series. But anyway, I'm excited to dig into The Faithful and the Fallen. So like I said, my next one that I'm most excited to dig into, or next author I'm most excited to dig into, is David Gemmell, because he's most famous for the Drenai saga, I think is technically what it is. Anyway, Drenai. So I have Legend, which is the first one, and then I have the second book in this one. I forget. But yeah, same thing. Like I was saying with John Gwynne, I've heard David Gemmell takes tropes by the horns and just runs with it and does the trope the best way it can be done. Again, I'm going to keep saying this, but these are things I've heard. So I've never actually read anything, obviously, so I don't know how true that is. But that's the impression I have of David Gemmell. And same, just like John Gwynne, again, I've heard his action is very heavy-handed, where you'll be really like deep in the middle of battles, be very exciting, very action-packed. And so yeah, I'm excited to get into David Gemmell. All right, author number 4 is Guy Gavriel Kay. This is the only book I have of his, and ironically, it's the 3rd in a series, so I probably won't start him anytime soon. But I still have a book, technically, so it falls in one of those rules. But I've heard good things about Guy Gabriel Kay. I've heard a lot of people say that he's very underrated, and I would probably say that's accurate, because I don't hear much about him, except when people do talk about him, they fawn over him, so that's cool. But I've heard that he has very unique worlds and very unique prose. Again, I could be wrong, but that's the impression I have of him. And he just takes an interesting perspective, from what I've heard. So yeah, I'm excited to get into some Guy Gabriel Kay. So author number 5 is going to be Raymond E. Feist. I've heard, again, only good things about Raymond E. Feist. I've heard that he has amazing world building and he takes fun tropes as well. I've heard a few of his series, if not all of them, are based on like his D&D campaigns he's had with his friends. I don't know if that's true with Conclave of Shadows. Let me know if you know. But that's what I've heard, and I just love those kind of tropey D&D type things. Because that's D&D is one of the things that kind of made me fall in love with fantasy as well. So it kind of works out. But yeah, he's kind of classic 90s, early 2000s fantasy. So I'm excited to dig into Feist. Now, taking some inspiration from my dad, from what he grew up on, the next author, I think author number 6, I've already lost count, that I'm most excited, or one of the most excited I'm to get into is Piers Anthony. He's got a ton of books. I don't know if he's still alive or still writing, but he's written a ton. He's got like 30 or 40 books just in the Xanth series alone. He's got multiple different series. He's like got Apprentice Adept. He's got, like I said, Xanth. He's got a tarot trilogy where it's like God of Tarot, World of Tarot, something like that. So he's got a ton of different series, both sci-fi and fantasy, but especially his fantasy stuff. So I believe I have the first 7 of the 8 or 9 books in the Apprentice Adept. So when I finally get to Mr. Anthony, I'll probably start with Split Affinity, which is book 1. But we'll see, because I believe with Xanth you can kind of read those out of order, but blah blah whatever. I'm really excited to get into Piers Anthony. And then following up on my inspiration from my father with what he grew up on is Terry Brooks. I believe I'm trying to get to the Sword of Shannara this month in March. If not, I'll probably do it in April for sure. But yeah, he's probably most famous for his Shannara series, in his second Shannara series, because he's got the original trilogy where it's Sword of Shannara, I forget the second book, and then it's like Elfstones of Shannara. Regardless, so you got those 3 books and then other things in the Shannara series. But I've heard it's kind of Tolkien derivative, but it's okay because I love Wheel of Time, and that is nothing if not Tolkien derivative. So if it's anything like that, I'm really excited to dig into this one. All right, and then author number 8 I'm really excited to dig into is David Eddings, specifically with the Tamuli series, or the Tamuli trilogy. I actually found all 3 of these at a book sale or a thrift store, secondhand store, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I'm really excited to dig into these. I've heard similar, like kind of typical 90s Tolkien derivative fantasy, but I actually like that stuff, so I'm into it. And I've heard a lot of people say, I haven't heard many people talk about David Eddings or Leah Eddings, who's his wife, that they would write a lot of things together. So I guess she would be like 8.5 if I had to include her. I haven't heard many people talk about it, but when they do talk about him, they don't really have anything negative to say. So that's why I feel pretty confident being excited about Mr. Eddings. And then author number 9 is Jim Butcher, most famous for the Dresden Files. This is book 2, so that's part of the reason I haven't started Dresden yet, is because I don't have book 1. I have 4 books, and it's like none of them are in order. I think I have this one, which is 2, and then I think I have like 7 and 8, and then maybe 12 or something weird like that. But so yeah, I'm kind of holding my breath, hoping I'll find book 1 at discount somewhere. So, but anyway, yeah, Jim Butcher, I've heard, again, mostly good things. He's probably the one I've heard the most mixed things about. Mostly people just don't like Dresden is kind of what it is, where they don't necessarily like the setting. Or I've also heard that his first couple books aren't great, but his later ones get really good. So maybe people have tried them and bounced off. I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm excited to dig into Jim Butcher. And then the last author I'm most excited to jump into with is R.A. Salvatore, mostly because I've heard so many good things about his Legend of Drizzt series. And again, like I said before, growing up with like Dungeons of Dragons lore, things like that, in like Dungeons of Dragons video games, like Baldur's Gate for the PlayStation 2, where after you beat the game, you actually unlock Drizzt as a like playable character, like who's all max level type stuff. For me, that was really cool. And like at that time too, like dark elves weren't really a thing. It was basically, again, Tolkien derivative stuff where it was basically classic like humans, dwarves, and then elves, but then it's like high elves is kind of usually what it is. So it's like the whole dark elf thing to me was really interesting. But I have yet to read any Salvatore, so he still makes the list. So yeah, those are the 10 authors, again, in no particular order, that I'm most excited to dig into, hopefully in the near future. Are all of these solid? Do you guys like all of these? Are there any of these that you have yet to try or hesitant to? Are there any I need to add to the list? Like I said, I could probably easily have like 50 to 100 authors for this list, but I wanted to cut it off at some point, so I just left it at 10. So I know, kind of different video, a little bit quicker depending what I edit this down to, but we'll see. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, please hit like down below. If you guys want to see more from me, Diggerdan, please hit that subscribe button as well as that bell notification icon so you guys know when I upload each and every single time. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.